What would you like to master? What skills would you like to develop? Being able to focus. But what should you concentrate on? These are all pressures and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for May 26th to June 1st, 2025 will bring. Hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather. As a certified human design professional and intuitive coach, I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live your true nature. Usually I have my human design background up, but I'm on my way to the west coast of Canada right now. I'm in Soyuz, British Columbia currently. Lovely lake in the background. So I thought I would share that today instead of the human design background for a change. All right. Well, in this podcast, Human Design, Whether or Not, we explore the conditioning influences of the planetary motions, the transit field. You can't avoid the conditioning pressures. You'll likely notice their effects playing out around you. But rather than you reacting and being pulled off track, this awareness will empower you to navigate the cycle, staying true to your authentic nature and taking advantage of opportunities when correct for you. Okay, let's get into the weather for this cycle. This cycle begins May 26th at 12:26 p.m., going until June 1st at 07 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates that's starting May 26th at 6:26 a.m., going until June 1st at 3:07 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the sun earth positions because that's 70% of the conditioning field. Well, this cycle, we finally move out of the individual gate activations and into logic. Logic is experimental. It's about repeating and refining to try to perfect and find the best pattern, the best formula to carry us as humanity into the future safely and reliably. As part of the collective circuitry, it's also about impersonal sharing of these patterns and formula towards betterment of humanity as a whole. So after 4 cycles of individual trait activations, which are all about being here now in the present, there will be this general pressure this cycle to look into the future, to ask yourself what you can do to create a more secure future for yourself and potentially for others. The sun has moved into gate 16, the trait of skills and enthusiasm. Here, translate the word enthusiasm into talent or skill. It has a keynote that says the great art of enriching life by the harmonic channeling of energy. This is not mental here. Gate 16's in the throat center. It's mechanical. It's pure energy to fulfill the potential through attention, focus, and concentration. Neither the throat of this trait or the splenic center that it points to are motors. So there's always a search for energy here that can be channeled into developing one's skills and talents through that repetition and refinement. It can be frustrating here to want to develop one's skills if there isn't the energy to do it, right? I really know I should be practicing. I really know I should be working on this, but I'm just too tired. The 16th gate is really important as a primary gate of identification. Now, note the difference here between identification versus the identity found in the G center, that diamond shape in the center of the chart. That's one of the things it represents: identity, love, direction in life. Here, it's identification, skill. Talent can only be developed through repetition towards mastery, and you're not going to stick with it if you're not identified with what you're doing. So in this gate, that identification is built into the mechanics. Think about artists or athletes, anyone who's developing their talent that describe themselves as being one with it, right? One with their art, one with the music, one with their sport, whatever that skill is. Yes, there can still be natural gifts that one has, but to really reach your full potential of talent and skill, it's a long-term commitment to practicing. And enthusiasm, that's the other name of this trait. Enthusiasm for it is going to help you to stick with it and get to the point where you have proof or not for that skill, that pattern, and what works. This is a trait that's going to bring pressure to focus and concentrate on developing your skills and talents. So you may notice that over this particular cycle. The logical process does require daydreaming. It's not the same kind of daydreaming and fantasizing that we talk about with Gate 41 in the abstract experiential circuitry, daydreaming about the next experience you want to have. Here, it's daydream about all the things that you could do with your skill, all the potential things that could impact the experimental and developmental process so that they can be accounted for as much as possible. If you're a basketball player, for example, you have to daydream per se about all the different ways to get that ball to the basket and how to deal with all the different kinds of interferences that could happen along the way so that you can develop your skills to overcome each one of those. If you're a researcher, you need to dream about all the different things that could impact your experiment. So lots of planning and conceptualizing to be done here so that when the energy is there, when a motor is available, the next level of development can be manifested. It's always a great idea with this trait to try to explain your concept to yourself when you're going through that planning part. Talk it out to yourself and see if you can actually explain it to yourself. Because if you can't explain it to yourself, you're not going to be able to explain it to others. And remember that this is collective. It is ultimately about impersonal sharing. The caution with this trait is that you may hear others presenting concepts as facts, right? But it's one thing to have something on paper and it's another to actually turn it into reality. So that's something to watch here. There can be an ego inflation of saying, yes, I have the skills for that. But can you? Can you really do it? Can it be brought into manifestation? It's a throat gate, so it has a voice. This is the voice of I experiment or I don't experiment. I have the skills or I don't have the skills. And again, you could have here someone saying, I have the skills without necessarily the capacity to bring those skills into manifestation. The Earth has moved into gate 9, the trait of focus. It's also called the taming power of the small in the sacral center, that motor that generates life force energy. Its keynote says potential can be fulfilled through detailed attention to all pertinent aspects. Yeah, we're getting into detail here. The ability to tame, the taming power of the small is the ability to master the nature of detail. This trait will bring the mastery of the energy for detail, which is necessary in the experimental way. You have to have attention to detail in order to find the perfect pattern, right? The perfect formula, or as perfect as you can get. There is no ultimate perfection. There's always that next refinement. So if you have detail work to do, this trait could be really helpful for you this cycle. This is in the sacral center, which is here to respond to life. Logic and the focus to organize the details is going to come out of the response to a need for logic. So it's not something that you're here to force. You're responding to something. Oh, yes, I need to do this. It requires detail. Yeah, this is going to help you then. This trait really carries the energy for giving attention to the process of problem solving. This is not actually solving the problem, it's the energy for focus and concentration needed for the process and being able to maintain that for the actual work of solving the problem to come. Now, the caution here is that there may be frustration in the process of having the energy to concentrate but not knowing what to concentrate on. Because logic wants to perfect the pattern, there's been this really unhelpful projection into it that mistakes are bad and then trying to cover up errors. But mistakes are just part of the correction and refinement process. And not only can understanding of what didn't work be helpful. But we also hear about those mistakes that turn into new discoveries. So we don't really want to squash those down. We really have to watch ourselves in terms of how hard we come down on the making of mistakes when we're going through this process, how hard we're coming down on ourselves, how hard we're coming down on others. If you have detail work that you've been putting off, then this could be a really helpful cycle for you. Now, for the 30% of you that do not have the sacral center defined in your chart, it's white in your chart. If it does get defined this cycle, there can be an amplification of not knowing when enough is enough when it comes to details. Going way too deep into it. The caution is that you may get frustrated if all the details aren't in place. There could also be some restlessness if you don't have the electromagnetic gate 52, which is the gate of inaction. We also call it keeping still mountain, the other ingredient to concentration. When we look at these two traits together, it may bring focusing on skills, but should you be using your energy that way, the pressure is going to be there. But if you're not following your strategy and authority, you may end up chasing skills that aren't actually aligned for you and putting time, energy, money, resources into that. So just a caution there. Okay, let's move into our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So there's a big impact. It affects everyone. All right, we have a carryover from our last cycle of a medium-term channel that's going to end on May 27th at 7:48 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, it'll be ending May 27th at 1:48 p.m. We have Venus sitting in gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence, and universal love in the G center, being activated by both Neptune and Saturn. Together, they create the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. This is an individual channel that can bring a pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself. That design of needing to be first is about stretching your own boundaries. And through that, you'll initiate yourself into a new sense of self, of what you're capable of, coming more deeply into yourself and being centered in that. This is part of the centering circuitry. This can be very empowering and support you in accepting yourself as you are. This is really the opportunity that comes with this activation. There's also an opportunity to be able to adapt to shock. The caution, though, is that what we most often see out in the world, the way this is playing out, is being competitive out of the ego, being competitive with others. Next, we have a channel that's going to come in twice in this particular cycle. First, it's going to come in as a little taster with the moon activating it. The moon only activates a gate or trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. So it's just a little sampler per se. However, then it's going to come back as a medium term channel a few days later. So first on May 27th at 5:28 a.m. going until 2:27 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's May 27th, coming in at 11:28 a.m. until 8:20 p.m. The moon's going to move into gate 35, the trait of change and progress in the throat center, connecting with its electromagnetic. Gate 36, the trait of crisis in the emotional center, the solar plexus center. We have seen this channel a lot because of one planet or another sitting in that gate 36 position. Then on May 30th at 11:53 p.m., going into the next cycle, June 2nd at 1:26 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's June 1st at 5:53 a.m., going until June 2nd at 7:26 p.m. Mercury's going to be moving into that gate 35 position, moving through pretty quickly. So, yeah, it's kind of in that a little more than the moon, but not with us for too long. This creates that abstract experiential channel of transitoriness, a design of a jack of all trades. The rule of thumb for the abstract circuitry is to never repeat an experience, but to move from one experience to another, hence the transitoriness. So a real contrast with the logic circuitry that's about repeating towards mastery. We have the emotional center connecting to the throat center. The emotional center is both a motor and an awareness center, our emotional awareness. This can be a pushy energy, emotions going right up to the throat. So it could bring an expression of emotions at the high of the wave or at the low of the wave, could be a little volatile. This is going to bring the pressure to enter into a new experience, the pressure to change something in your life so that you can go through a new experiential cycle. It's about moving from being a novice to having the experience. So the crisis here, the crisis of gate 36 is all about being that novice. I don't have the experience yet. The potential opportunity here, if it's correct for you, according to your strategy and authority, is to enter into a new experience or move to the next phase of one that you're already in, or perhaps even bring it to completion, getting to that gate 35 in the throat center where you can articulate the change and progress and how you feel about it. This is a channel where you can share your feelings about your experience. It's a very creative channel. It's a place where you find all the different ways of experiencing something. How many ways can you use a brick? You know, it can be very hot sexually speaking. Let's try something new. And it's totally impersonal as part of the collective circuitry. It is all about getting the experience. The caution here is that there can be no expectations about what the experience will bring. Really hard to do. The mind loves to have expectations. This can also be where we express, like, I'm bored. Like gate 35 sometimes is the trait of boredom until something new comes along. And then it's the voice of, I feel. Most often, I feel like a change. If you enter into an experience out of the pressure and not your strategy and authority, it can bring frustration, anger, disappointment at unmet expectations or this sense of feeling stuck. All right, we've got two more channels that are just tasters being created by the the transit of the moon. So May 28th at 5:55 p.m. going until May 29th at 3:15 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's coming in May 28th at 11:55 p.m. until May 29th at 9:15 a.m. We have the moon moving into that gate 52 position, the trait of inaction or keeping still mountain in the root center, connecting with the Earth's position, gate 9, the trait of focus. Together, they create the logical channel of concentration, a design of determination, sticking with that repetition, sticking with the experiment, sticking with the concentration that's needed. So it brings that opportunity to focus and concentrate on the problem solving and finding or mastering a pattern. This is a channel that can bring an intensity to all the other traits in your chart. The caution here, though, is if you're unsure of what to concentrate on, it could lead to frustration. Next, on May 29th at 12:42 p.m. until 10:16 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, UTC coming in May 29th at 6:42 p.m., going until 4:16 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 53, the trait of beginnings in the root center, connecting with Venus position in gate 42, the trait of completion and growth in the sacral center. Together, they create the abstract experiential channel of maturation, a design of balanced development. This is about going through cycles, beginnings, middles, ends, towards gaining that wisdom and growth. There's a maturing that happens in us. Why it's called the channel of maturation as we go through experiences. It brings a cyclical nature to every other trait in the chart. The opportunity here is to start something new, take that next step, bring something to completion. Once again, though, if you're not following your strategy and authority, you could end up doing any of these things at the wrong time. Which is not going to be so pleasant in the end. You'll meet your not self theme of frustration, anger, bitterness, or disappointment. All right, that brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for a longer period of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're part of you, even when it's not something that you have in your own design. We have the nodes of the moon related to our direction and environment sitting in gate 36, the trait of crisis, and 6, the trait of conflict and friction, both in the emotional solar plexus center. They have now moved into line 2. For gate 36, the trait of crisis, line 2 is called support, and it has a developmental theme that says assistance to others in times of decline. Now, decline is not having the experience. So there could be opportunities to give and receive support in moving from a novice to being experienced. Now, line 2 can be very selective, so it might not give support unless absolutely necessary. For gate 6, the trait of conflict and friction, line 2 is called the gorilla. Now, gorilla as in battle, not the animal. It also has a developmental theme that says the ability to maximize an inferior position through timely contact and withdrawal. In its exaltation, it brings the ability to find the weakest point in a conflict and exploit that emotionally. In its detriment, it says the lack of sensitivity that blunders into conflict. Remember that in the world around us, the not self world, it's typically the detriments that are playing out. So, yeah, lack of sensitivity in relationships to conflict, in the bigger world, blundering into conflict. Yep, that's something that we might see playing out as long as we're in this line, too. Jupiter, with its quality of expansion, is sitting in gate 12, the trait of caution and standstill in the throat center. This is a trait that can express feelings and moods, that can mutate how we interact with each other. but understands that as an individual trait that the tribe and the collective may not always be ready to hear what it has to express. And therefore, it needs to be cautious, needs to be patient and hold back. Or it could be the gate of incaution, just blurting out its moodiness in a way that can be even volatile. It's part of the channel of openness, being open or closed to social interaction. Now it's moving right along into line 6 now, which is called metamorphosis, with a developmental theme that says faith in and energy applied toward change and the emergence from standstill. Yeah, so that expression, that mutation could really come through here. Being able to express in a way that shifts how we relate to one another, mutates that in some way. Now, line 6 typically doesn't express unless it really thinks it can make a change. So there could also be the adaptation to caution and simply accepting whatever the social limitations are that are present. Saturn and Neptune both sitting in that gate 25 position in the G center, the trait of spirit of the self, of innocence, and universal love, or the polarity. Neptune is still sitting in that line 4 position, really nice position, doesn't have any polarity. It has a developmental theme, so we learn it over time that says the nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. The spiritual warrior. It's like looking at the world with those newborn eyes, those fresh eyes, and staying in that level of innocence, just taking in what is. Now, Neptune could veil this ability, but it could also unveil it and support you in going into the depths of the unknown. Neptune's also the dissolver. So it can operate in that way, dissolving the things that could keep us in the unknown or dissolving the things that have been preventing us from going into the depths of the unknown. Now, Saturn has moved into line 3. Saturn brings limitation and constraints and consequences. This line is called sensibility, and it also has a developmental theme that says the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. It can bring the power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock, but it can also be the potential of loss of spirit through failure and shock. Perhaps Saturn will limit both the power of the spirit to withstand shock and the loss of spirit through shock. Or if we're not sensible, perhaps there will be consequences. Uranus, with its unusualness, sitting in gate 8, the trait of contribution in the throat center. It's in line 4 called respect, with a developmental theme that says the gift of naturally recognizing the contribution of others and particularly the acknowledgement of those who lead by example. Its exaltation says the drive to contribute and be an example to and for others. The detriment says in a group where limitation is transcended, reason alone cannot predict individual worth. As an example, the acknowledged leader of an athletic team is not necessarily the most talented. Remember that individuality is not about being the best. It's about being different. So both of these could be seen in a positive light in a sense. You might find with this transit that you can really appreciate the creativity of others and bring their talent to light to others. And you could see on a team, for example, who's really bringing leadership by example, even if they don't have that big C on their jersey. Pluto sitting in gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease, part of the abstract experiential circuitry. It's the gate of daydreaming and fantasy. It's in the root center, bringing that drive, that pressure to start something new. And starting a new experience starts with daydreaming about it, fantasizing about it. What is that next experience that you want to have? Just a reminder that line 2 brings is that in the end, it needs to be practical or of value in some way. Remember that for any of these traits that you don't have in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You might feel it within you. You can learn from it. But whether there's actually something for you to do from it is according to your own strategy and authority. So we don't want the transit field running you or puppeting you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. And if you're new to human design and want to understand the basics of the body graph, the chart, what's the black and the red about? What's the different geometric shapes? So just at a high level, a little bit of background on the human design system itself, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human hyphen design. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could give the episode a like and consider subscribing. All right, if you have to focus and concentrate on something, especially to develop a skill, this cycle could really help you. On the other hand, watch for not putting extra pressure on yourself to be perfect, to not make any mistakes. Logic is always critical in its nature, but sometimes that shifts to self criticism. Okay, have a great cycle, everyone. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.